mouth.
I love popcorn. Speaking of which, welcome to Thunder Nerds. I'm Brian Hinton, and you're...
Oh, I'm Janelle Pizarro.
Who loves popcorn, and I'm Frederick Philip Von Weiss. Thank you for consuming the Thunder Nerds, a conversation with the people behind the technology that love what they do
And do tech good.
and eat popcorn. Ow! Boom! Brian's gonna pick that up. Hey, today we have a amazing guest. We have Mr. Ethan. Ethan, how you doing, sir?
Oh, what's his last name? Don't say it.
I've heard it all.
Say it.
I've heard it all.
You can do it. We believe in you.
Marcotte.
Nailed it in one take.
Is it
Really?
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
What?
I make telemarketers very angry.
I know it's the
It's
first
gonna be a
time.
story.
No,
We
no,
need
it's
to hear it.
Mr. Ethan. Oh, really?
Mr. Ethan.
McConnell.
McConnell?
There was an L at the
McConnell?
time.
How do you get McConnell out of your
I
name?
don't know, but I respected the effort.
Oh my
Wow.
gosh.
Yeah.
You
Jeez.
should totally videotape you trolling
Well,
telemarketers.
I don't really answer the phone anymore, so I think that's
See, my favorite thing is I love when telemarketers call me. I feel like it's a gift because I just take them on a journey.
Sure.
I enjoy it. Brian could,
he does. And it's,
Oh my goodness.
yeah, I ask them about what clothes they're wearing,
Oh wow.
how soft their pants are. It's fun.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
All
You
right.
can just always pass me your phone when you get one of those calls because we're going to have a good time.
Okay.
Well, by the way, guys, we're at the Front End Conference in
10th anniversary.
Yeah, yeah.
Where is this at, Ryan?
St. Petersburg, Florida, at the Palladium, which is a really awesome building. Awesome.
Beautiful space.
Yeah, it's a beautiful space.
Ron Stewart.
Yeah.
Ron Stewart. Rod Stewart bought this couch.
The celebrity name changes every time.
Yeah, we're actually behind the stage right now. There's a presentation going on up front, and you still have a day tomorrow to come and see Chris Coyer, Tim Smith. Really,
Marco.
yeah.
Oh my
really
God,
awesome.
get down here. Watch some of these speeches.
Yeah,
Very valuable.
yeah, and and we're here with Ethan.
Ethan, who the heck are you?
I'm still figuring it out.
Aren't we all?
That was an existential question. I should be more specific. I'm sorry.
Just gonna get
Not
worse
where
from
you
here.
are in the universe or the Virgo cluster,
Sure.
but more about what do you do and who you are
Yeah.
in a responsibly way.
Right.
Something like, do you wash your dishes in the dishwasher, or
Right.
do you do them in the sink?
Oh, you got to do the pre-rinse.
Okay.
You got to do the pre-rinse.
I'm not a fan of the.
I can respect that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Not for everything, but anyway. Yeah. But I got slides. No, but anyway. So my name's Ethan Marcotte. I'm an independent web designer. I'm based in just Boston area.
Awesome.
And yeah. So basically, as the man alluded, I'm kind of known for that responsive design thing. Sorry. So yeah, but that's kind of like most of my practice over the last couple of years. It's like working with clients on responsive redesigns. More recently, it's like they might have in-house teams that are trying to go responsive with a really big website and might do like some consulting or workshops or things like that.
And didn't you do something with some unknown guy? His name
Zeldman?
George Zeldman.
Sure.
Cederholm.
The name rings a bell.
Yeah.
I'll think about it for a second. But yeah. I've written a couple books. I co-authored the third edition of Designing with Web Standards with Jeffrey Zeldman. And then, a couple years later, wrote Responsive Web Design. And then a few years later, Responsive Design Patterns and Principles.
Wait, you're that guy?
Yeah, I'm that guy. The third book is what usually brings out the record. So yeah.
Oh, now she's gonna faint. And,
I'm gonna die now.
Show's
I'm
over.
just
Show's over.
Done.
Yep, that's fine.
You're that guy?
Have you thought
You're
about-
that Ethan?
have you guys thought about writing a more like a book, like a
A
novel
coffee
book?
table book or something. Oh, a novel? No, not really. I mean, like actually,
Fiction?
like, yeah. The thing is like I love writing, but like dialogue is not something I do very well. So
Yeah.
like I actually thought friends were like, you should write a book, and I was like, well, that'd be fun if nobody ever talked.
Oh,
So
yeah.
You could do that.
I could do that.
It'd be
Could do that.
interesting.
Yeah.
Like that movie. The one where no one speaks.
Yeah,
Wally?
And everyone's like,
no,
No, that new one, Wally.
John Krasinski movie. Yeah.
You
That's
can
really
write
good.
just
I
like
could.
that.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I think.
What
Yeah.
movie was it?
I don't know, the movie.
Yeah. John Krasinski.
She's talking about the new one.
Oh yeah,
movie.
it's like a horror
Yeah.
thriller.
I think
Yeah, with
so.
Emily Blunt.
Yeah.
All I see is
It's the
pictures of
shush
people
movie.
doing
It's like
Yeah.
a
The
silent.
Shush movie.
It's like silent.
Shush and Shush 1, Shush 2.
Right.
Yeah. All the monsters walk around there like, shh. That's how they scare you.
Yeah.
Shh. They get this really evil look in their eye. Ethan, what the heck are you talking about today?
Right now or no?
No.
Yeah, no. This morning I gave a talk
did
about.
this
Oh, what did you talk about today?
Yeah.
Rather.
When were you in the lineup? Were you first or?
Yeah, so Dan Denny, who started the conference, did like a little like introductory like
And then,
retrospective. Like I said, it was 10 years.
Yeah.
It was really sweet. And then I went up and basically did a talk on just like how the web is like changing in developing markets. So like looking a little bit beyond like Western Europe and the United States. Like basically like rather than just thinking about the mobile web as like the iPhone, talking about some very prominent parts of the world where devices are a few years older, they're less powerful, but they're still just capable of hitting our website. So it's like, how does that change the way that we design and build the web?
So are we talking about things as far as the quality of device, the bandwidth, somebody that's using 3G, things like that?
No, exactly. Yeah, I've got this one slide in my talk that folks like, which is Ericsson estimates that like 60% of the world's mobile connections are sub 3G.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to me to sort of see like there's a disconnect between how we talk about what constitutes good web design in the US, because we're designing on relatively recent laptops, on decent phones, and most of the world, especially some communities here in the States, are basically like on the lowest end of the bandwidth spectrum. So like
a lot of like the not Midwest, but the Central America, I guess, the US is very much still on non-broadband.
No, totally. I mean, I come from a rural part of Vermont, and like up by the Canadian border,
Vermont,
and large parts of my family and some neighbors are still on like satellite connections.
Oh, wow.
They're on dial-up, so it's a little bit personal, but also like I think it's valuable for our industry because like we tend to think about folks as basically browsing the web like we do, and that's really not the case.
Yeah, we live in a bubble compared to like the rest of the world. It's kind of like a lot of in Silicon Valley where there's a lot of technologies there where you can be like, hey, Alexa, okay, Google, sorry guys, send me a pizza, or like I don't know, order me a necklace and send it to me, and it just arrives. But here, if I'm like, hey,
your family's probably not using Uber in the part of Virginia.
Not as such. Yeah. So no, I think it's interesting. I mean, because like I get as excited about anybody as the next thing that's coming, but it's also worth remembering that
I don't have that in a home.
Yeah, no, that's true. It's like we're trying to be able, it's a World Wide Web, right? So it's like, how can we build?
Oh yeah, there's the rest of that world. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
There's a giant market that we have to think about when we're creating these products, whatever they may be. And like you said, the people using sub 3G connections might not align with a desired outcome or result of using that product.
No, totally. And I mean, I'm a designer, so it's like, a lot of the organizations I work with, performance is like, that's the techie word. Right? Like developers are just like, that's something that the developers are just going to take care of.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the projects I work on, we try to start talking about bandwidth before we've even started the design work. And, talking in like clear terms, like, okay, well, how are we going to define as a team what constitutes like a fast experience? And that's basically like setting down a budget for our work that we refer to throughout the rest of the design process.
I like that.
And I'm not sure if you're familiar with Design Disruptors by any chance.
I've heard the name, but no.
It's like this really cool like movie where there is a part where one of the designers for Facebook has implemented 3G Fridays or Wednesdays.
Oh, sure.
That's it.
I did hear about this.
I think, are you like a huge supporter of that kind of movement?
I mean, generally, because I think like anything you can do to sort of step out of, you were saying the bubble that we all design in, I think is incredibly valuable. I mean, like the New York Times a couple years ago, like they basically cut off access to the desktop website on their internal network. So that anybody who's working and actually going to look at the New York Times basically had to do it on their phone.
Wow.
So it's like,
it's interesting.
They're like these organizational hacks like 3G Fridays or, just mobile only access for your staff that I think folks can look into to basically like remind themselves that they're designing for somebody who doesn't necessarily have like a 15-inch monitor on, the fastest network possible.
Yeah.
I think anything you can do to sort of like just remind yourself that there are some other folks out there is helpful.
Do you mind if I ask you some real world examples of reasons why we need to think about this? Like, obviously we're talking about this in a general sense. It's very clear and it totally makes sense. But what are some real world examples that people could take and really put a picture in their mind of how this affects somebody.
That's really interesting. I mean, I think like, you know, so you mentioned organizational hacks. A woman named Laura Hogan was, up until recently, like she was an engineering manager at Etsy. And so basically what she ended up doing was, as part of their build process, they started like, they put up these like television walls kind of around Etsy, so that whenever a new build was deployed of the website, it would actually show them like a simulated timeline of how quickly the website was going to be loading over 3G in different parts of the world. You know, so they're designing for a global audience. So it's like, okay, well, it's great that it loads in like under 6 seconds on 3G in New York, but here's what it looks like in Australia.
Yeah, server locations and things like that. A lot of people don't consider that. Yeah.
No, totally. And it's stuff like that that kind of like, you know, to your point, from Fortune now, it's like it circulates the idea that the design decisions we make cost our users time and money in some cases. So it's like, how do you get like non-technical people involved in that process?
Yeah.
I like to load all versions of jQuery on my site.
Just to make
because.
sure you're covered.
Yeah.
No, exactly.
It's a good idea.
Releases. I mean, 2.6.1 was banging.
Oh my God! Right?
Yeah. I don't know.
And the UI library too.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. So it sounds like too. You were saying earlier, Vermont doesn't have access to a lot of this. It sounds very. I mean, we touched on it briefly, but a very personal thing for you as well. Like you want to make sure that when you're at home or we're neighbors, have access to these things as well, and that's a good experience for them. Is there any other? Is there any other influence besides that that led you to doing this? Like something personal that why you decided to?
No, I mean, I think it's just like kind of my upbringing, just sort of being like, when I was at work in the city, I would have like, one sort of way of encountering the web, and when I was home visiting family or seeing friends, it would be dramatically different. And I had the option of like sort of like going back and forth between those two environments.
Did you get angry that didn't load?
I mean, not angry, but it was just like, it's like, so actually, it still happens today. Like I travel a fair bit. If I'm out of the country, I do get free roaming through my cell phone provider, which is actually kind of cool.
Like or T-Mobile?
Yeah, T-Mobile, exactly.
Yeah.
And but it's capped at 2G speeds, so it's really interesting.
Make me twitch.
Well, I mean, it's frustrating on one level, but like,
Well, it's weird too because I've I get 3G on certain parts of my commute, and I'm stopped and in traffic, and I try and access something simple like Twitter. I've heard Twitter has a really good 3G.
Their mobile website's
actually supposedly really good, but it's really not.
Yeah,
I mean, it's slow to load things. Images don't load. Text doesn't load.
Sure,
it takes forever, and that's 3G, and it's kind of crazy to think that was just that was a few years ago.
Yeah, it's not that long ago,
and it's really slow, which really makes you think that like larger sites, like imagine going to something like The Verge on a 3G network, and it would be a nightmare. Do you talk about ways of dealing with, dealing with that? Is that a dynamic loading where you only load like maybe the text, or how do you is there a way of determining what the connection is? I feel like there is.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting some tools that you can sort of like detect bandwidth, but I mean and I should say again, I'm a designer, so like some of the stuff is a bit
I get it,
but like some of those tools, the challenging thing with like measuring bandwidth is, well, right now we can't do it super well. Yeah. Some of the tools that we have, it's like bandwidth is variable, right? So when you're stuck in traffic, you get 3G for 1 minute, maybe you're on LTE the next. So over the course of a browsing session, or even over the course of your time on a page, it's going to change.
Yeah.
So, again, we're getting some tools to kind of manage that a little bit, but generally speaking, like what I advise a lot of the clients that I work with is like assume everybody's like a low bandwidth experience.
Yeah.
And then, that's going to improve the experience for everybody. And then you can have conversations with them. It's like, do you want to like expose some preferences for people to basically be like, okay, well, I'm ready to like commit to the high def experience. Exposing UI preferences is always a little dicey, but it's like, I like that idea of like letting the user kind of opt into an experience that they're willing to pay for.
Do you have any kind of examples of companies recently that took that plunge to dive and invest more into this kind of thought with their build process?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, you mentioned The Verge. I mean, I know Vox Media has like made it a big priority. They've been talking a lot about it because they had kind of like a performance, like,
Yeah, they've always been a joke where like people have gone to their site to test how well a browser works or the speed of it because it was so heavy. Like it was always a joke.
Funny. I think they recognized that they needed to make that a priority. Because I mean, every organization, it's like page speed you can directly attribute to how profitable your website is.
Yeah.
Right? And so
3 seconds, I think, is the average wait time.
I mean, there's different like
wait.
yeah. I mean, like over 3G, it's like there's different numbers floating around. It's like if it's usable within like 6 to 8 seconds, tends to be like the general like
within 3G.
Within 3G, and again, it's like there's a distinction between being usable. If you can get something into the screen and things are still loading in the background, people are going to be happy. Google said the same thing. So it's like, if you can actually tie like a fast experience to how satisfied somebody's going to be, that's going to feel like a good experience to them.
Like AMP, that was one of the goals of AMP, wasn't it? So that it was slower performance, which is a weird way of doing it. But that's a whole other episode I can go off on. Completely changed the way you access things on the web.
Yeah. What do you think about the other side of the spectrum? Do you ever think about or talk about 5G and where that's going, and how that's going to affect the way we do things?
I mean, I think like
it's gonna be faster, supposedly.
I mean, yeah, right.
It's 5. It's greater than 4.
I heard it's a gateway for demons.
An extra G is always good. Yeah, right.
Oh
right.
my
Sure.
goodness.
Well, it's escalated quickly.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's 6G.
My wife.
Right.
Oh, 666G.
I mean, not really so much. I mean, because like rollout for some of these things is so slow, and it's also so concentrated. So I mean, again, like this talk that I gave this morning was like focused on like a lot of developing markets. So like certain regions of Africa where like cell phones aren't necessarily always private devices. They might be a communal resource that's shared among a family or
that's interesting.
A village. So I think it's interesting to sort of like make that assumption. It's like eventually like everybody's going to have like 5G level access. But in the short term, even if that's going to be the case, which I'm skeptical of, maybe we need to be prepared for web that's a lot slower. Yeah, right. There's that too. Yeah. I mean, I write a lot about that issue. So
about everyone.
Everyone. Yeah.
So you're kind of evangelizing this whole thing. It sounds like this whole movement on a personal level. You're really pushing it. You seem to have a lot of knowledge, put a lot of thought into it.
Well, I think so. I mean, this is a talk I've been given for a little while now, but I just like accessibility and performance. I think are things that we've always talked about as being something extra.
Yeah.
It's like there's web design, and then we actually have performance and accessibility somewhere over here. And I've just always felt like that's part and parcel with designing for the web. It's like we need to think about not just how beautiful it is, but also how usable it's going to be or how accessible it's going to be.
Right.
Because if we're only paying for things, if we're only making things available for folks on the latest hardware, the most expensive hardware,
it's not very responsive design.
Responsible design.
Responsible.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're going to be here tomorrow as well, but if you are Kwan Luo, I keep talking about her today, but like I'm obsessed with her.
I love her since we interviewed.
I think we're totally in love with her.
Oh,
but she actually has a really awesome blog post about designing with kindness in mind.
Oh yeah.
And it includes things that is totally me. Yeah, you can totally delete that. But she talks about how to design for people who are in that space where they don't have access to the fastest internet. Or even designing for people who need a lot more accessibility and just a ton of awesome design practices, and I think you would really love that.
No, that sounds great. Yeah, I'll definitely check that out.
Or her blog rather. But
she
she also talks about she's going to be talking about how to kick ass while wearing
many hats.
That sounds very
I think that's totally like
great.
up your alley.
I just hope she comes out on stage with many hats.
Like
that one kids book. You guys remember that? Any of you remember that kids book about the monkey and the hats?
No. Was it Curious George?
No. It was this old. I remember as a kid, it was this guy who had many hats, and he always wore them on his head. But as he was walking, they kept going away, and monkeys kept taking them.
Right.
It was
this happened to me before.
Yeah, it's a great. I really like that as a kid. So I love by the way, I love the blazer jeans.
Oh,
looking sharp, sir. Looking sharp.
I gotta dress like I know what I'm talking about. Thank you. Yeah. But no, this is an intimidating lineup.
Oh my God, yeah.
I would say that you're intimidating to other people.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, but no, like Mina Markham gave an amazing talk right after I finished. And, you know, you mentioned designing for kindness. There was a really lovely section that she had where she was showing some of the accessibility testing she did for the Hillary Clinton library she was designing. Pantsuit. Yeah. Which is cool. Perfect.
I love the name. That's so perfect.
So awesome.
But yeah, so it's like, you know, there's some real care and thought that went into, you know, something that most folks probably wouldn't even see. Or, you know, she spent a lot of time on. So yeah, it's nice.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And how do you feel about you know, people taking on stuff that you've, you know, written and that you kind of evangelize about,
Right.
and they make it their own? How does that?
It's a little
make you feel?
terrifying. No, I mean, like I have this line in this talk, and I mean it every time. It's like, you know, I wrote this responsive web design article back in 2010. Don't do the math. But like, you know, it's weird that I met a publishing deadline, and I thought that was going to be the end of it. Like, I just wrote an article, and I thought I was going to never hear from it again. And it's weird how much it took off.
Done with that.
Yeah. No, it's really heartening that this struck a chord with people, but at the same time, like, you know, it's also, you know, it's intimidating. So yeah, it's really cool. It's really cool because I'm learning, you know, about responsive design just kind of along everyone else. So yeah.
I remember I had this old blog, probably, I don't know, maybe 8 years ago, and I did some responsive design stuff, and I wrote about some stuff, and I remember I felt really good about myself because you put a comment in there.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's really great because everyone approaches it differently, and you know, every designer kind of thinks about like that challenge of like, you know, not just making things fit on differently sized screens, but also like really just like that extra fit and finish that makes it feel at home.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, there's a lot of really beautiful work out there. It's amazing to see it happen.
I like the term adaptive design because I feel like now it's more fitting because it's not just responding to a screen. You're adapting to devices where it can be displayed on. I mean, you can display it on a watch, you can display it on an Xbox, you can display it in VR, AR.
And people, you're adapting to people and their situations.
Yeah,
or
think about. I mean, we've had a similar talk when we had the two AR VR guys in a past episode where we talked about how like Alexa and Google Home are actually reading content from websites, and they're getting that content from the website, and that's another kind of way of adapting your design to be able to communicate that information across a variety of mediums.
And thinking about that content, I was talking about accessibility.
Yeah.
Like if that content that the screen reader is reading, or Alexa, read me the recipe of this web page.
Yeah.
And it depends how semantic your markup is.
Yeah, exactly.
So you might have things that are hidden -9999. And then it starts reading it because it's text.
Right.
Well, you should actually check out Karen McGrain's got a great talk on that exact thing. She calls it what's it called? Adapting ourselves to adaptive content. Because it's like, you know, I mean, you know,
we'll put a link to that in the show notes.
Yeah, no, I totally recommend it. It's really wonderful because, you know, I mean, it's not a design problem so much as like a structured content problem. You know,
exactly.
Stuff that Alexa's reading isn't necessarily a web page. It could be stuff that's, you know, prepared specifically for that kind of context. So. And she's been thinking about this stuff for years.
Who is that?
Karen McGrain. She was the co-host on the Responsive Design podcast that I was running. We worked together a little bit, but yeah, she's amazing.
Are you still doing any podcasts?
We just closed up the Responsive Design podcast. We're going to be starting a new one very soon.
Fine.
So yeah, we're in silent mode, which is basically meaning we're trying to figure out what it's going to be. So yeah.
Do you have any kind of like inclinations of what it might be?
Yeah, I mean, we talked a little bit about this in the last episode, but Karen was basically like, we're focusing a lot on responsive design, which is great, but at the same time, like, the problems we're talking about could apply to any kind of project, you know, so really it's going to be kind of looking at a lot of big brands that are probably responsive, but also at the same time kind of talking through, like, you know, how did this change the way that you worked? What are some of the issues that you hit along the way? It's basically like, you know, just really kind of trying to uncover what went wrong and what went right during the redesign.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it could be kind of fun. So.
Well, Ethan, I have one last question for you.
Okay.
What is something that you like to do for fun that has absolutely nothing to do with design or tech?
Oh my goodness.
And it has to be legal because we're live.
Sure.
Just want to preface with
PG-13, I guess.
Yeah. We had one guest that's not here with us anymore. So.
Do it. Oh, right. Wow. Was it Rod Stewart?
What's obviously
Rod Stewart.
Yeah, so it was Rod
Yeah. No, it's weird. I think, like, you know, doing, you know, I'm exercising a lot more, which is not something I ever thought I would say like 5 years ago. So like running, and joined a gym last year.
Good for
a lot
you.
of stress after 2016. So I was like, you know.
I don't know what about.
No, yeah, no idea. But anyway, so it's like the nice thing about it is like it's finally something that I really like doing. That's just away from screens. I'm offline for a little bit, and that's actually been really helpful for me when I do get back to work. So,
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
It's like clear your head.
Yeah. It's like I don't know. I think of it as like being a little bit selfish for me because like nobody can text me when I'm at the gym. Nobody can call me. It's just like I have to sort of be here and be present right now for an hour.
Well, I don't know about it being selfish, but it's definitely a way for you to be able to give back. It's kind of like when the airbags fall, you're supposed to take the one for yourself first and then to your child.
Yeah. A good friend of mine says, put on your oxygen mask first. Yeah, totally, yeah. Gotta recharge a little bit.
I see you're married too. How long?
Make me do math already. 9 years. Yeah.
Congratulations.
What do they work in the same field as you, or?
Yeah, they do. My wife works. She works for a large software company. She sort of runs the customer support department.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
She's great.
Any of the little ones?
We have a terrible cat. I don't know if that counts, but yeah.
How's that?
Name?
Rorschach.
Rorschach.
I mean,
that's my wife's.
Yeah, that's my wife's work. Yeah, it doesn't really matter. The cat doesn't come.
Where's it from?
Well, she picked it because of the ink blots, but you know.
Oh,
Rorschach.
Not
okay.
comic book character.
Okay.
Yeah. Although she does share some grumpy characteristics. But yeah.
I like how you're like, it doesn't listen to.
So when she sees your cat, she just thinks of an ink blot.
Yeah, pretty much. Right, exactly.
It wouldn't work the other way. Of course not.
No. Yeah.
So if you see an ink blot, you can't think of a cat?
No.
But you can. That's the whole point of the
That was
test,
sarcasm.
right?
That was sarcasm.
I didn't pick up on it. I was with you.
I'm
No.
I'm like, wait, what?
Thick sarcasm. You got to deliver with a straight face.
Oh man.
So what started to do in Vermont as far as what do you do in like spare time? Do you go hiking? Do you go?
Yeah. I haven't been up in a few months. I mean, I'm based in Boston, so when I do get back, it's usually visiting family.
So you're home. You grew up in Vermont,
exactly,
and now you live in. Okay, I remember you live in Boston. Oh yeah, Boston probably has some like amazing food and stuff.
Good food. Yeah. It's a good walkable town. It's easy to get back up to Vermont or down to New York if I want to.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get an accent. How long have you been in Boston?
I've been in Boston, oh my goodness, 18 years now.
You don't have an accent?
Yeah.
Is it an adaptive accent?
Oh,
like
I get it.
You like that?
Yeah.
So when you're there, you're like, hey. What you do?
I'm not going to put that on film, no.
Oh, no.
I've got some
We're leaving now, so you can hear this.
I do have some good friends who actually grew up in Boston, and it's interesting because they'll sort of switch accents depending on professional context versus personal.
Sure, yeah.
Do you think you do that at all?
I don't. No. Yeah, no. It's
so you think you don't? Gotcha.
I've adopted like the Boston, sort of like quiet nod at people when you're walking past, but that's about
the quiet.
What's the quiet nod?
It's just like you don't talk to people in the street.
Yeah, it's just like,
everyone says good morning down here. They like look at you full on and they're like good morning, and I'm like,
and we hug in Florida.
Yeah,
unless it's summer.
Everybody.
It's a full on embrace.
Sunshine here, man.
Like who are you? I don't know you. Let's hug.
So just a quiet nod, huh?
Yeah, no, the New England people are cold and silent people. So no, it's not that bad.
What?
No, but it's a great town. I really do like it. So if you all are ever up there,
do you like lobster and everything?
Lobster's fine.
Yeah,
it's fine. It's a delivery vehicle for something else. Yeah.
I don't like shellfish at all.
Yeah, that's fair.
Delivery vehicle was
for
garlic butter.
For garlic butter,
pretty
cheese,
garlic butter,
like a bisque.
No,
bisque is good. Lobster bisque is good. Yeah,
it's about the only way I like lobsters in a bisque.
Well, now that we're talking about
I'll eat it out of the ocean.
And I'm hungry.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's get back to this
popcorn.
That's a good plan.
This was provided actually by the front-end conf, and they have amazing food here, by the way.
Yeah.
Like the snack, they have a breakfast that they provide to everyone. And I don't know if I call it a lunch. Is it a lunch? Or is the afternoon?
I think they just have a lunch
snack.
break. Yeah, they have a snack in the afternoon.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a really generous lunch break.
But they're really, pretty
Get
awesome.
you
Are
a
you
ticket.
Pointing? What?
Just saying, get you a
That's
ticket.
Oh,
There's a
okay.
day left.
Yeah.
I'm down
Still
tomorrow.
a day left.
Yeah.
Day left. So come down to the front end conference. Are you gonna be here tomorrow?
Unfortunately, I'm flying out early. So.
Oh, so you can't shake his hand.
So
Sorry.
he's gonna be missing his flight in the morning.
That's right. Nice to see you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, excellent.
Yeah,
Hey, man,
great
thank you so
talking
much
to
for
you.
being
Yeah.
on the show. Super
Really
appreciate
nice
it.
meeting all of you.
Yeah.
You too.
See you
Thanks,
guys.
everybody.
See you, folks.